He is my son, yet his actions while we were home alone were truly astonishing. I never imagined that this could occur in my life. Avoid making the same errors I did. The house was remarkably silent that morning, a stillness that seemed almost palpable. Having just completed my second cup of coffee, I found myself seated at the kitchen table, where sunlight poured in through the blinds, creating elongated golden lines that danced across the wooden floor. The previous night's rain had left the world outside appearing newly washed, creating a day that beckoned one to open all the windows and inhale deeply. Joshua occupied his room on the upper floor. I believed he was, at the very least, my child, my sole offspring. At the age of 29, he had recently returned to live with me for a time, following a breakup that had left him feeling unsettled. I embraced him warmly. Mothers fulfill that role with grace. Regardless of your child's age, your presence is essential whenever they call for you. Moreover, I had felt his absence keenly. He had consistently embodied a quiet demeanor, marked by observance, thoughtfulness, and a gentleness that rendered other boys appearing loud and awkward in comparison. During his teenage years, he preferred solitude, frequently retreating with his guitar or sketchpad, his gaze perpetually reflecting thoughts he never fully expressed. As a man, that remained largely the same. In certain respects, it deepened my admiration for him. However, recently, there has been a noticeable change in our dynamic, something left unsaid. It was neither dramatic nor obvious. The essence lay in the subtle details. The manner in which his hand remained for just a moment longer on my back as he passed by. At times, his gaze seemed to suggest he perceived someone entirely different from the peculiarities surrounding us, thoughts that I promptly concealed within. Reflections I was reluctant to acknowledge, much less articulate. That morning, he descended the stairs, clad in a t-shirt and joggers, his feet bare and his hair tousled from slumber. His voice was gentle as he greeted me with a good morning, and I sensed a stirring in my chest that had long been dormant. Embrace the warmth, apprehension, an element that is both unfamiliar and perilous. "Would you like some eggs?" I inquired, rising to my feet, attempting to dispel the sensation. He inclined his head, resting against the doorway with his arms crossed, observing me intently. "Certainly." I approached the stove and began to crack eggs into the pan. His gaze was upon me, unwavering and silent, a palpable weight resting on my shoulders and trailing down my back. I was dressed in a fitted tank top, paired with loose house shorts. Nothing out of the ordinary. Suddenly, I became acutely aware of my vulnerability, noticing the curve of my hip and how the fabric embraced my waist. "Mom," he said, his voice dropping to a softer tone. I pivoted. "Have you ever contemplated the peculiar nature of sharing a home with someone who possesses a deeper understanding of you than anyone else?" he inquired. I blinked. "Are you referring to a connection between us?" He smiled, though it lacked any hint of teasing. I chuckled quietly. "I suppose I don't perceive it as unusual." "You are my son." "Indeed," he remarked. "At times, it seems as though our connection transcends the ordinary. There is an aspect of our connection that sets us apart." I swiftly returned to the stove, my heart pounding for reasons I could not comprehend. The eggs were nearing completion, yet I found myself unexpectedly devoid of appetite. As we settled in for our meal, he fell silent once more, yet the stillness that enveloped us felt different this time. The air was thick, charged with an unmistakable energy. The fork glided softly across the plate as I nibbled at my meal, deliberately steering clear of his gaze. He initiated the conversation. "Your appearance today is truly impressive." I locked eyes with him, taken aback. "Thank you, that's very kind of you." He emphasized that he wasn't merely making a statement. "I truly mean it. Your beauty is truly captivating." The term, exquisite, I sensed it permeate my skin with a warmth that enveloped me. I was at a loss for words. Compliments from Joshua were not unfamiliar, yet the manner in which he expressed them, coupled with the intensity of his gaze, felt both novel and perilous. I rose to my feet, an urgent desire for distance overtaking me. "I need to attend to some laundry. Could you please rinse the dishes?" "Certainly," he replied, his tone inscrutable. I positioned myself against the wall in the laundry room upstairs and gently shut my eyes. My thoughts were chaotic, tangled, and misguided. I continually reminded myself to cease experiencing these feelings. However, the reality was that I did not experience any feelings of disgust. I experienced no sense of panic. A sense of curiosity enveloped me. I experienced a sense of alertness, and I despised that I felt no disdain for it. In the later hours of the afternoon, the rain returned. Thunder rumbled softly in the distance as rain delicately drummed against the windows. The house grew dim and cozy, as if it had settled in for the night ahead of schedule. I lit a candle in the living room and settled onto the couch with a book, yet I found it difficult to concentrate. My thoughts wandered aimlessly. Joshua descended once more, a blanket elegantly draped over one shoulder. "May I join you?" he inquired. "Certainly not," I replied, making an effort to maintain a calm tone. He positioned himself beside me, perhaps a touch too near, yet I remained still. Silence enveloped us for a time, punctuated only by the gentle patter of rain and the intermittent dance of candlelight casting shadows on the walls. He reached over with a gentle motion and draped the blanket over us both. His arm lightly grazed against mine. "I used to do this when I was little," he said softly. "Do you recall? Cuddle up beside you when the storms roll in." "I recall," I stated. He rested his head on my shoulder and I welcomed the gesture. My body tightened, yet I remained still. It was a pleasurable experience. It resonated with me in a manner I couldn't articulate, and that frightened me more than anything else. "You smell the same," he murmured. "That same soft scent, reminiscent of soap and warm skin." I gently closed the book. My pulse resonated in my ears. "Joshua." "I apologize," he murmured, his voice scarcely audible. "I aim to ensure your comfort. I find myself experiencing emotions that I can no longer overlook." I glanced at him, my breath momentarily halting in my throat. His face was in such close proximity. His eyes held a profound seriousness, probing into mine. Yet, the silence that enveloped us resonated more profoundly than anything I had ever experienced. In that stillness, I came to understand that I was poised at the brink of an indescribable experience. A truly frightening experience, a moment of closeness, something genuine. The following morning, all sounds seemed amplified. The clinking of dishes in the sink, the hum of the fridge, and even the sound of my own heartbeat, steady yet racing, throbbed in my ears as I navigated the kitchen, striving to maintain an appearance of normalcy after the events of the previous night, striving to embody the role of the mother, the gracious host, and the Stigilwan. Joshua has not yet descended. I reassured myself that I appreciated the additional time to myself, yet deep down, I was merely preparing for what lay ahead. What is the purpose? I was completely unaware. As I leaned against the counter, coffee cradled in my hand, I gazed out the window at the backyard when suddenly I heard his footsteps ascending the stairs. My stomach clenched, my fingers gripping the mug with a touch more pressure than intended. As I turned around, I found him there once more, barefoot, with tousled hair and sleepy eyes. His shirt clung to his chest in a manner I made an effort to overlook. He smiled with care and gentleness, not as if he had forgotten the words spoken the night prior, but rather as one who still held them close within his heart. "Good morning," he remarked. "Good morning," I responded, infusing my tone with a sense of buoyancy. "The coffee is freshly brewed." "Thanks," he said, brushing by me, so near that I could feel the warmth radiating from his skin. He filled a cup and rested against the counter across from him. In that brief silence, words eluded us both. I sensed his gaze upon me once more, just as it had been the previous day, but this time I could no longer feign ignorance. I raised my eyes and encountered his gaze. There it was, that unmistakable intensity, the unvoiced question lingering in the air. He mentioned that he didn't sleep much. I replied, "Me neither." He savored a deliberate sip of his coffee before placing the cup gently on the table. "I had no intention of causing any confusion last night, Mom. I apologize if I caused any discomfort. I previously mentioned that I could halt my actions before feeling any discomfort. You evoked an unexpected emotion within me." His eyes sparkled with astonishment. "Indeed, indeed." The atmosphere was taut between us, a delicate connection drawing us toward an unspoken destination we had yet to define. I averted my gaze and began rinsing out a bowl that I had no real need for, merely to occupy my hands. "It seems prudent for us to pause and reflect," I suggested softly. "Allow yourself some distance. Would you like me to relocate?" he inquired. I became immobilized. That may not have been my intention, yet perhaps it was. I was unaware. "No," I said softly. "Simply, consider spending the day outdoors to enjoy some fresh air. It is essential for both of us." He nodded with deliberation. "I will visit Matt and perhaps enjoy a meal in town." "That is satisfactory," I remarked, attempting to convey a smile. Once he departed, the house fell into silence once more. However, on this occasion, it seemed distinct, unsettled, empty. I moved through each room with a spectral grace, gathering blankets, neatly folding laundry, and polishing counters that were already spotless. His voice echoed in my mind, his touch lingered, his words resonated, and the unspoken thoughts hung in the air. I recalled the way his gaze rested on my lips and how my body reacted instinctively, without consent. In those moments, I found it difficult to see my own reflection. This is not the version of myself that I had embodied for decades. The dependable wife, the nurturing mother, the esteemed neighbor, the one who consistently had the answers and never faltered in her decisions. However, I had evolved beyond that. I was a woman who had devoted years to overlooking aspects of myself, concealing desires that remained unfulfilled. In an instant, someone gazed at me, truly gazed, and perceived what lay beneath the surface, even if that individual happened to be my son. As Joshua returned home later that evening, I found myself once more in the living room, nestled in the familiar corner of the couch, attempting to read, yet struggling to focus. He entered silently and took a seat opposite me, maintaining a respectful distance this time. "Are you all right?" he inquired. I acknowledged with a nod, my gaze remaining fixed downward. He paused briefly before continuing to speak. Today, I engaged in considerable reflection regarding the events of last night, concerning all matters. I shut the book and locked eyes with him. He appeared remarkably serious and grounded, as if he were not hurrying into any decisions, simply embodying honesty. I didn't intend to say those things to put pressure on you, he continued. However, these thoughts are not novel. I have been experiencing these feelings for quite some time, and I no longer wish to feign indifference. I swallowed. I find myself at a loss for words. Joshua, no need for words. Allow me to speak candidly. That is all I am requesting. I nodded slowly, uncertain of the implications of my gesture. He spoke softly. When I look at you, I don't merely see my mother. A woman is in my view. A woman who embodies beauty, strength, and kindness. A woman with whom I share a unique closeness, unlike any I've experienced before. My breath was momentarily halted. He acknowledged the impression it may create. However, I can no longer be untruthful about it, not directed at you, not for my own consideration. I remained seated, my heart racing as my thoughts whirled around me. This was not merely an emotional mishap. He had experienced it for a longer duration than I had comprehended. Perhaps I did as well. Do you believe this has the potential to progress further? I inquired, my voice scarcely rising above a whisper. He gazed at me with a sincerity that caused my heart to ache. I am uncertain, yet I prefer to delve into it gradually rather than suppress it, and later lament the lack of understanding. I averted my gaze, feeling a prickling sensation in my eyes. He rose and approached me deliberately and with caution, before settling down beside me, maintaining a respectful distance, simply existing in the moment. The room was once more shrouded in dimness, as the storm clouds outside gathered ominously, reminiscent of yesterday's tempest. The weather seemed to align perfectly with our mood, dense, weighty, electrified. He extended his hand towards mine. I allowed him to take it. It lacked any romantic qualities. It was a considered decision. The atmosphere was serene, authentic, and filled with dread. I gently squeezed his fingers. We should take our time. Time is essential for me. He acknowledged with a nod. Feel free to take as much time as you require. We remained seated for what seemed like an eternity, simply holding hands. Amidst all the chaos, I came to understand that there was something more at play. Tranquility. For the first time in years, I experienced a sense of visibility. I experienced a sense of recognition. The subsequent days seemed to exist in the stillness between heartbeats. Joshua and I refrained from discussing it further, at least not in a direct manner. However, everything had transformed. The manner in which we navigated our surroundings, the connection of our gazes from across the room, the lingering unspoken tension that always enveloped us, everything had changed now. Familiar routines now held an unexpected intensity. We settled into a serene cadence. Coffee in the morning, gentle readings in the kitchen, exchanging glances in the hallway as if hesitant to make contact. There was an air of fragility surrounding the moment, as if we both understood that we were treading on precarious ground, where a single misstep could shatter everything beneath us. Yet despite all that attention, it remained present, the present moment, and it remained vibrant. In fact, it intensified with each attempt we made to overlook it. One evening, perhaps a week later, I found myself folding laundry in my bedroom. The door stood ajar, allowing the gentle creak of the stairs to reach my ears as Joshua ascended from the basement. His footsteps came to a halt just beyond the threshold of my room. "Do you require assistance?" he inquired softly. I glanced up and offered him a weary smile. "I believe I have understood it." He entered cautiously, as if seeking unspoken consent. I refrained from stopping him. He approached the edge of my bed and picked up a pair of pillowcases, beginning to fold them while avoiding eye contact. We collaborated in quietude, a silence that felt complete rather than uncomfortable, as if we both understood the delicacy of this moment. He spoke softly, his hands continuing their motion as he pondered. I refrained from responding immediately. He inquired about us. I paused in my folding and turned my gaze toward him. "Do you ever wonder," he said, still avoiding my gaze, "why something that feels so natural could be deemed so wrong?" I positioned myself on the edge of the bed. It transcends mere feelings. It pertains to the significance it holds. At last, Joshua turned his gaze toward me. "Please explain it to me, Mom, as I find myself at a loss for understanding. I feel a unique closeness to you that I've never experienced with anyone else, and I refuse to pretend that it doesn't hold significance." I was rendered speechless. The expressions I sought were absent, leaving only the burden of our shared understanding. He moved in closer and settled beside me, the bed emitting a gentle creak beneath us. "I've always felt secure with you," he remarked, "yet this, whatever it may be, feels distinct, and it transcends merely the past. This is our identity now, as individuals, as grown-ups." I nodded deliberately, my hands tightly clasped in my lap. "I am aware." "I'm not asking you for anything," he said, his voice soft and gentle. "There are no commitments, no guarantees, only transparency, even when it evokes fear." I turned my head and gazed at him, truly gazed, and I perceived everything. His vulnerability and sincerity were palpable as he held back, allowing me the space to breathe while his emotions quivered just beneath the surface. I provided him with the honesty he requested. "I experienced it as well," I replied, and I endeavored to suppress it. I reassure myself that I might be imagining things, that I could be conflating love with something entirely different, yet deep down, I know that's not the case. At this moment, I am acutely aware of the emotions that arise within me as I gaze upon you. He released his breath as if he had been holding it for days. "However, the situation is quite intricate," I elaborated. "This is neither a book nor a movie. This is our life, our family, and any action taken without careful consideration is irreversible." He whispered, "I know." We found ourselves in silence once more, yet it felt light and unburdened. It was meticulous and deliberate. He then extended his hand, deliberately, and grasped mine once more, just as he had done previously. This time, I experienced no sense of panic. I experienced a profound clarity, one that arises not from possessing the answers, but from the courageous act of acknowledging the truth. I flipped my hand and intertwined my fingers with his. "We have no plans for tonight," I said gently, "but I would like you to remain here, simply to sit with me, engage in conversation, as we once did, as we are still able to." He offered a smile. "Understood." We positioned ourselves at the head of the bed, leaning against the pillows, shoulder to shoulder. The night enveloped us, gradually unfolding its embrace. We reminisced about cherished memories, reflecting on the individuals we had loved and lost, as well as our regrets and aspirations. It was an experience that was both unrefined and exquisite, evoking a sense of fear. At a certain moment, he adjusted his position, allowing his head to rest softly on my shoulder. His breath brushed against my skin, and in that moment, I acknowledged a truth I had long kept hidden from myself. I felt no fear towards him. I felt a deep apprehension about myself. about the implications of allowing someone to perceive me so transparently, to embrace love from someone who was once intertwined with my being, yet now stands beside me as a fresh presence, not a boy, but a man, and perhaps that was the aspect I had yet to confront. As the clock struck midnight, I turned to him and remarked, "It would be wise for you to get some rest." He gazed up at me, his eyes laden with emotion. "Are you certain?" "Indeed," I acknowledged, "but I appreciate it. For this evening, for your understanding, for allowing me the time I needed. I will wait for as long as you require," he stated. Regardless of the outcome, my desire is for you to know that you are cherished because you truly are. He leaned in and pressed his lips to my cheek, slowly and tenderly, before standing and exiting the room without a glance back. For the first time, I felt free from the burden of choosing between two impossible options. I sensed an abundance of time at my disposal. The subsequent days were the most serene I had experienced in years. A change had occurred once more, yet this time it was neither abrupt nor perplexing. The atmosphere was serene, as if we had both released a profound tension that had weighed upon us for far too long. Joshua provided me with space, not through distance, but through a sense of gentleness. He remained present, consistently assisting with household tasks, preparing coffee each morning, and inquiring about my day. However, he chose not to insist. He refrained from initiating any topics unless I chose to, which provided me with a sense of security. Above all, it brought to mind the reasons I had always placed my trust in him. Even when my thoughts wandered off course, I never experienced fear. One evening, I found myself in a setting where the air was infused with the scent of earth and freshly cut stems, while the sky radiated a golden glow that heralds the approach of dusk. The sound of the back door opening and closing was soon accompanied by the distinct echo of footsteps on the stone path. I could sense his presence without needing to look back. "Require assistance?" he inquired. I playfully remarked, without glancing in his direction, that he merely sought an excuse to evade the task of doing the dishes. He chuckled and approached, gently taking the shears from my grasp. Convicted. However, my desire was simply to be close to you. I rose to my feet and brushed my hands against my jeans. You were always my shadow during your childhood. At that moment, our gazes locked. Indeed, you are truly remarkable. There was a period of silence between us. He meticulously trimmed several branches, proceeding with caution and deliberation, while I gathered the fallen stems, placing them neatly into the bucket at my feet. Suddenly he inquired, "Do you have any regrets?" I observed him intently. "Concerning what topic?" "Concerning this matter. Regarding our recent emotions. Concerning the matters we have acknowledged." I gently shook my head. "Absolutely not. I stand by my commitment to honesty. At any time, the uncertainty of what follows is what truly frightens me." He nodded, placing the shears delicately on the rim of the planter. I have dedicated a significant portion of my life to withholding my true thoughts and feelings, particularly to those who are significant. I no longer wish to pursue that course of action. I rested against the wooden fence, feeling the breeze gently sweep a strand of hair across my cheek. "I comprehend that, beyond your awareness." He advanced nearer. "Maintain a respectful distance, precisely sufficient." He remarked on the lines that occupy my thoughts. The unseen forces that define our standards of acceptability. What is not? I often reflect on the extent to which we confine ourselves within boundaries, even when those boundaries are established by individuals who lack insight into our true feelings. My throat constricted. Those lines are there for a purpose, Joshua. Indeed, he remarked softly. However, it is possible that some of them are not intended to endure indefinitely. Once more, he extended his hand toward mine. At this point, the gesture had become quite familiar, not as if it were taken, but rather as if it were given freely. Allow him to take it. In that moment, I recognized the distance we had traveled. We took our time with everything. We had not ventured beyond any limits from which we could not return. We simply allowed a situation to develop naturally, with great attention to detail, truly. That held significance. That evening, we settled onto the couch, side by side beneath the same blanket, reminiscent of that stormy night weeks prior. This time, my head gently rested on his shoulder. His arm encircled me. There existed neither fear nor guilt, exclusively warmth. We viewed a classic film. I was unable to recall which one it was. I paid little attention. I found myself captivated by the gradual rise and fall of his chest, the delicate way his fingers caressed mine. As the credits came to an end, I glanced over at him. I expressed my uncertainty in a soft voice. While the future remains uncertain, I am acutely aware of the emotions it evokes. I am certain that I no longer wish to engage in pretense. His gaze held a tenderness that made my entire being melt. He expressed his agreement, stating, "Neither do I." He leaned in, more gradually than anyone ever had, allowing me ample opportunity to reconsider. I did not. Our lips met, not out of hunger or desperation, but in a quest for understanding, a gentle inquiry. As we separated, I experienced no sense of shame, exclusively intimacy, exclusively clarity. A prolonged silence followed that moment. Words seemed inadequate. Ultimately, we bid each other good night. He pressed his lips to my forehead and ascended the stairs, leaving me solitary in the stillness of the house, accompanied only by the rhythm of my heartbeat and the reality of what had transpired between us. In the subsequent days, we persevered onward, deliberate, mindful, considerate. We discussed a wide range of topics on the subject of boundaries, concerning decisions, regarding our desires and our aversions. We acted with caution. We were not lost. We were two individuals who had unexpectedly reconnected in a manner neither of us had anticipated. We were aware that the outside world would not comprehend. This was not a matter concerning the world. This pertains to our relationship. For the first time in my life, I experienced a sense of living not by the expectations placed upon me, but in alignment with my own truth. The path we traversed was one we had deliberately selected. In unity. That was the pivotal moment.